Ois Gimel. So, v'hinei lahavin b'inyan hashisha midas beprotus. The Alter Rebbe is now going to explain talked about generally before, the chesed and the gevura. Each one is koilel. Talked about the membeis masois, the 42, how 6 times 6, 6 times 7. But he's going to explain now the specifics of each of the midas of chesed and gevura. What does it mean, the netzach v'hoid of chesed, and what does it mean, the netzach v'hoid of gevura? He's going to explain that the chesed, the netzach, and the hoid are external, which means that's the actual doing, even without having the midah of chesed and gevura still have left over from the reflection. So when a person reflects about the Eibishter and he creates a level of chesed in his heart to the Eibishter, or gevura, a level of yira to the Eibishter. So those are still influenced by the reflection. He understood something and he reflected, so he has a love, he has a fear of Hashem. But then to extend that love of Hashem even after the chesed is gone, the Abba, in other words, no longer understands, to go ahead and stay connected. That's the level of netzach and hoid. Also the level of yira, even if he doesn't fully get it, still to go ahead and have Kabbalah. So let's look inside. So v'hinei lahov in b'inyan hashisha midos beprotus, to understand the 6 midos in detail. Hainu hayois noida, that it's known. Ki netzach v'hoid nikroim yireichon lebar megufa. They're called the thighs, which is outside of the body. So you have the body, and then you have the legs, basically the thighs, which is outside of the body. So he's going to explain how netzach v'hoid is outside. The nikroim, they're also called the badei aroves, the sticks of the aroves, like in the 4 species that we use on sukkahs. So you have the heart, that's the lulav, the esrog, and then the lulav, and then, but the netzach v'hoid are represented by the sticks of the aroves, the badi aroves. She'ein bahem lo tam v'lo reach, they have no taste and they have no smell. That's what netzach v'hoid is. Netzach v'hoid, they don't have a taste or a smell, and you still have netzach v'hoid. Upirush lebar megufa. What does it mean when we say outside of the body? Hainu ki chagas heim etzem hamidus. Chagas is the midah itself. So the midah of chesed, or the midah of gevura, the midah of chesed, the midah of gevura, that's the chagas, unihi, the netzach hoid yisoid, the 3 levels of netzach Yisrael, hein hashpoes hamidus lizulosoi. They are when you give from the midah, when chesed gives to the other person, that's called outside, lebar lechenik lebar megufa. So the way they measure the midah is in the heart of the person. Over there, it's the midah itself. When that midah goes out to give to the else one, that's called outside. That's where you have netzach hoid yisod. The inyan she'ein behem tam v'reach. Why do we say that they don't have a taste or a smell? I know Ki b'chagas yesh adayin had oras haseichel atam. In the Chesed, Gemara Tiferes itself, there is still a shine of the seichel and the reasoning. Ulufi ha'ores hamoichin v'haseichel, and based according to the shine, the intellect and the mind. Kach heim eifane hamidu. That's the way the different of the measure of the midah, your emotion depends on the extent of the intellect. The spilus alev, and the excitement of the heart, im ravimat, if a lot or a little. So there's a direct correlation. There's a connection between the mind and the midah. There's still reason and taste in the emotions in chesed and gevura and tiferes. Ki ha'oras ha'moichin me'irim b'chagas, because they shine of the moichin shine in chagas. Lachein b'chagas yesh bahem tam, and that's why in chesed gevura tiferes there is a reason and there is taste. Hainu ha'oras hatam ma'aseichel mislabish b'hamidah, a shine of the reasoning of the intellect dresses up in the midah. Mas'ein came b'netzach v'hoid, as opposed to by netzach v'hoid. Netzach v'hoid already don't have the shine of the moichin, doesn't shine in netzach v'hoid. Ki netzach v'hoid, netzach was hainu she'achar she'nistalku ha'seichel v'hatam shel hamidah, that after the reason and the rationale of the midah, it's already no longer there. Mikol makoim, and yet misnatzeyach lasis hamidah, he still pushes himself to do the measure. Machmas shekach nishas kometzle. That's what he decided. Previously, when he was inspired, he made a decision that he'll love Hashem. And then even afterwards, when the reason is no longer there, he still goes, no, I'm still, that's the level of netzach. This is the meaning of netzach, which is a branch of chesed. Because, why is he doing the kindness? Because he decided, it has been decided by him, I'm going to be wanting to do good, and even though the real kvar nistalek hatam v'aseichel shehoyo bazeh me'iseh tam hiskim came, and already the reasoning and the intellect that it wasn't that, why he decided is removed. Rak shenisar ha'eskem lebad, it just remains the decision. He doesn't remember even why he wanted to be kind, but he said he wanted to be kind. He's going to be kind. Nikra Badei Arovis, that's why we call it the sticks of the Arovis, of the willow, that have no taste or smell. That means that already from his heart there have been removed the idea, the reason, the moichin, the intellect, which is called the taste, the reason. So tam is basically, that's the intellect. But what's the reyach? The reyach, that is the level of rotzon v'tainu, which means that he wants it because he's delighting. He doesn't even have that. He doesn't have not the reason, the intellectual, and not the pleasure from it, and still he's doing it because of the netzach, as he will explain later in the Mamer Yard Yerichai. At the end of the Mamer, the Alter Rebbe explains that Yarden Yerecha means reyach, the level of smell, as we'll see. Achim kol zeh. So even though he doesn't have any more the reason, he doesn't have any more the pleasure out, still, chinas hanitzuach v'heskem hachozek, the level of netzach, nitzuach, and the strong decision, yaseh es hachesed, he will do the kindness, av sheliboy bal imoy, even though his heart is not with him. Okay, this is the level of netzach which is a branch of chesed. K'mekain hahoid nikra anaf hagvura b'kapas smoil. So likewise, the level, the sphera, the mid of hoid, that is called the branch of gevura on the left side. On the right side, we have netzach, and on the left side, we have hoid. That's from the Gvur Kavas Smoil. V'nimtza lifizah. Move on. So what is it understood? Ki chagas heim l'mayla b'madregim b'chinas netzach v'hoid. So that chesed gevura tiferes are on a higher level than the level of netzach v'hoid, because in chagas you have still the ha'oras ha'meichim, but in netzach v'hoid you don't have the ha'oras ha'meichim, so they're in a lower level. So we need to understand. He's going to ask. In some places, it's brought down that netzach v'hoid are actually connected to keser. So it turns out that netzach v'hoid are higher than chesed and gevura, which are only connected to the avaim. Why do we say that? According to this, we need to understand Mashakosu bepriyetz Chaim Shar Hamidah Perik Yudalet. So over there it talks about the kavonas in the davening. We say Keil Elyon Goimel Chasodim Tovim. The Goimel Chasodim Tovim, he does good kindness. That's already the level of netzach v'hoid. Chesed u'gevura, that's the midah in the heart, we said before. Netzach v'hoid is the expression from my chesed and gevura, that's by me, to the other person. The Eibishter were saying, Goimel chasodim tovim, he does kindness, good kindness. Where does that come from? So he says, explains in the Priyetz Chaim, that when we say in the davening Keil Elyon, that it comes from the level of Keser. Keil Elyon, or he says Keil Elyon, who Arich Anpin, that's the long face, versus the Ze'er Anpin, which is in Atzilus. This is in Arich Anpin. Shu HaKeser. Shu HaGoyim Chasodim. That is the one that does kindness. Sheheim Nihidizah. That's the Netzach Hod Yisoid of the Zeir Ampin. That's the Goimel Chasodim Tovim. And that comes from the Kesed of Arich Ampin. Hamoitzi Oisom, he brings them out, Besoid, that's the secret of Tesefes Mechodesh Chulu, additional renewal. Shenihi Chadoshim Dezo Nimshochim Mekesed Davke. That the Netzach Hod Yisoid, the new Netzach Hod Yisoid of Zog come from Keser. So in other words, the new Hamshach come from Keser. And this is also the Inyan that says by the Kel Angivachsam Tovim, Umevi Goyel Livnei B'neihem. He brings redemptions to B'nei B'neihem. Who's the B'nei? The Bonim are Chesed Gevura. The grandchildren, B'nei B'neihem, that's the level of Netzach and Yisoid, because those are already derivatives of Chesed Gevura. Those B'nei B'neihem, Shem Netzach V'Hod Kumeshikosu Perish Perik as well. Ba'im B'Zoyar, or maybe Goyel is still going to the Keil Elyon, still going on Arich Apin. Ba'im Hashikot B'Zoyar Pashishmini Daflamet Vov Medalef. Hare Mevuer. So what do we see from there? That the Netzach V'Hoid Shorsho Mehakeser, the Netzach V'Hoid are rooted in Keser, Sho L'maylo Ma'avaim, which is even higher than Avaim, than Chochmah Bina, V'Kolshke Mechagas, and for sure from Chesed Gvura Tiferes. So how are we explaining over here that Netzach V'Hoid come from the Chesed and Gevura, that they are the branches of Chesed and Gevura, when we see over there in Priyetz Chaim and the Zohar that they're actually connected with Arich Ampin. He says also we can question, because you see it from our flesh, from your flesh you say we can see. Sharei, Sharaglaim, that the feet, we say they're the outside of the body, those are the legs. The Rechaim. So we see Hareim Amidim Haguf V'Horosh. They are the one that stabilize the body, and the head is on the legs. And they carry the head. So you see that how does the head stand through the feet? So you see somehow that the head is greater than the feet are greater than the head, because they're the one that support, that keep the head up. Also, sometimes when you need to heal the head, why they are regular is through the feet. That you would put the feet in warm water in order to relieve the head, the pain in the head. For there are sinews of the head inside the feet, because the head is connected to the beginning. So we see that the feet support the head. That the earth is the pedestal for my feet. Over there explains how the feet is higher. So how is that explained? So it's going to explain that sometimes you see when a person who's smart, but yet he can't give it over to another person. He can't express it because he does. But it takes a very smart person to bring it down to the lower level. So basically, he's saying that in order to bring it down to Netzach and Hoyd, it has to come from a higher level. Let's look inside. The humans, Al Derech Moshe, will understand this by way of an example. There is a person who is a smart and he studies and still he cannot lamed, he cannot teach and to flow to somebody else, to one who is lower than him. For himself, he understands the idea. But to influence, to give to somebody else, he doesn't have the ability to teach somebody. But person who's even smarter than him, he is able to give the flow and to teach to another person that wisdom. Because he is smarter and he understands the things more deeply. That way he is able to give it to the other person, to influence the other person. So to take someone, a greater chochem, in order to bring it down further. Where does the chokhmah come? It comes from ayin, from b'chinas kesed. Chokhmah comes from kesed. The kasher hisik zeh. So what happens? Kasher hisik zeh hachokhmah le'omka v'shorsha. So when the person understands the depth and the root from where it comes from, that level of ayin, meir by b'chinas ayin. So it shines from the level of ayin. It comes from ayin, and when he understands it, he gets from the level of ayin. So when you get from the level of ayin, it's going to say, then you can be mashpia later on further down. So that means that through the chokhmah, once you get the level of chokhmah, then you can go further down. Like the difference between a well that flows water, that is called mayim chayim, that's living water. Why? Because it's close to the source, which is the source of the living waters. So that's why the mayim is called mayim chayim. So that is when somebody understands it deeply, then he gets the ayin, and it's called the mokar mayim chayim. But a person who doesn't really fully understand it, he doesn't get it fully, he's considered like just regular water. They are not living waters. That person will not be able to mashpia to another person because he's not the live water, he's not close to it. He didn't get the ayin. It's only if he gets from the ayin, that's how he can be mashpia below. So what do we see? In order to give the flow to somebody else, Shazahu Yirida, this is Matzmusa Lebar Megulam Gufa. That's descending from himself to the outside of his body. That hinges in understanding the wisdom deeply. In a level of ayin, from which Chachma comes out. So you need the person to really fully understand it to get from the level of ayin. It's not the same, but a person who doesn't understand it deeply and completely, even though that he's a Chacham and understand it for himself, still he's not able to explain and to give to somebody else. Okay, you on the Mila. It's like this in the above. The Prinas Netzach Vahoid Shehem Lebar Megufo. Now we'll understand it with the spheres that Netzach Vahoid that are outside of the body. Shehu Yiridas Hashefa Me'amidas Elyonis. Lamato, that is the descent of the flow from the supreme midas to below. So Shorsham Nimshach Davke. The root comes from Ayin Keser, which is higher than Merkin Shabarosh. Like we said, so that's where you get it from. So, and this is the meaning, maybe Goyal B'nei B'neihem. In order to bring redemption to B'nei B'neihem, Shehem, B'chinas, Netzach v'hoid, while yidei his galus kel elyon b'chinas keser kenal. That is through the revelation of keser elyon kel elyon. So when you have the greater revelation, that is when you can get the higher amshachah. Ayim ashekosu mizeh bebiur aposik se'eno re'eno gabei inyan l'chu lachmi b'lachmi. Over there it says, she girded with strength her hips. That when we occupy ourselves, we study the laws of Teresh Ba'Peh. So that's how you extend the power and the strength in the Mosnayim, in the legs, the outside netzach v'hoid, shem b'chinas raglayim. Those are the feet hamamidim harosh, and he said the hainu b'chinas amuna ayin shom. That's the level of amuna. That's the chogra b'izmas now. B'hainu lefi shenihi nimshachim ma'keser. That is because netzach v'hoid yisod come from keser. Shehu rotzin elyon hamizgal b'tira shabal peh. That is the Rotzin Elyon, which is revealed in Teresh Ba'Peh. That's the level of Lebar. That's the level of Netzachot Yisoid that comes from the level of Keser. B'ayin, so the reference in this Negeres HaKodesh. B'ayin Mashkosu b'inyan Netzach b'divra Maschel HaMetzech HaLashmini. B'alpi HaTisefta shebezer b'shalach dafnun. Gabitlas ruchin de kolilim betlas chulu. B'ayin Mashkosu Parsh Yisra b'divra Maschel. Hine lehovin sherish inyan matan teure b'inyan. Begam Netzach Yisrael lo yishakechul ki lo yodamuchu, umzeh yuvan gam ki Mamer azav Netzach Yerushalayim Okay. So now we're going to explain. We said before, Netzach is the branch of Chesed, and Hoid is the branch of Gevura. Netzach hu anafa Chesed. Shu b'chinas gilui avaz mesuteres. That is the revealing of the hidden love. Azik va'ava kol hayom, to strengthen yourself with that love all day. Abli tam klal, even though without any reason. The Hoid and Hoid hu anafa Gevura. That's a branch of Gevura. Kiyadua, what is Hoid? How does the Hoid a branch of Gevura? What is the idea of Hoid? So he says, Kiyadua ha'hefresh ben brocha lehoidah. It's you bless Hashem or Hoidah, or you thank Hashem. Hoidah, or recognition of Hashem. Kiyadua Kiyadua hu merochik. That's from a distance. Why is it level of Gevura u'b'chinas yira shu mekorev. Gevura itself is a level of fear that when you come close, you get scared. So when you grasp Hashem's exaltness, so then you have the level of Yira, then you're afraid. That's the level of Gevura itself. But Anafa Yira, what is the branch of Yira? That's already a distance. You are agreeing, you agree on this matter without understanding the essence. The Yira is close, you understand, you become fearful. Hoidah is you don't understand. That's a branch of the Yira. Also, you have all the other. Generally, we say, we're talking about the Hoid is the branch of Gevura, but there's also all the 7 midas. What would be the Netzach? Before we talked about Netzach Shebechesed, what would be Netzach Gevura? He accepts with a stubbornness, with a insistence, accepting Oil Malchus Shemayim. Moshe Kosu, Vayira, Vayomer Manoirachulu. And he was Yireh, he was afraid. He says, oh, how awesome. So Vayira means he brought down the level of Yira on himself, and that's why he said Manoira, Pirush. Vayira. What does it mean, Vayira? That Hu Shehimshich Olav Liyis Misyare. He drew down upon himself that he should be afraid. Like the Pasuk says, Soim Tosim Alecha Melech. Place the king upon you. So that basically means that you draw down, you first force yourself to be afraid of Hashem, to accept Hashem's yoke. Because after you make him for a king that he can do as he wants, he's your king. So for sure his dread will fall on him. He's my king. So that level, when he's your king already, he's your king, then there's level of actual Yira. So this means when you just agreed to make him a king. That means that you agree to bring down the Yira. I'm going to make you my king. Once he's made the king, you already are afraid because he's your king. Shem Tos Melech Melech means that you make him a king even though you don't have Avshin L'Yirapil Mamshatai. The Kachu Inyan Vayira Vayomer Manoir. Avshin Lo Yasoga Kol Kach Berem Musi is Borach. So that even though he doesn't have yet so much grasping in Hashem's exaltness, Achetibel of Amos, so that it should fall upon him a fear of Hashem. Yet he insists on himself. He's menatzeach to accept the yoke of the heavenly Shemayim. That's called Netzach Shebegvura. Shekach Huskam Hadover. That's the way it was decided. This is Kabbalah Shel Mach Shemayim. V'im kein Gam Ba'odom Beis Bechinas Netzach V'Hoid Shorshim Kavoyim Hoid. So also by the person, that level of Netzach and Hoid, that insistent, that Eidah, that they continue, that has a very high root. Just like the root we talked about Netzach V'Hoid Lebar Megufa. And by the Chacham Gadol, so we're saying in Avodas Hashem the same thing is that Netzach V'Hoid have a very high root. Like the pasuk says, Ki am k'shei orev hu v'lachem v'salachta. Am k'shei orev hu means they're a stubborn nation, which means they get from the level which is higher than Chochmah, k'shei orev. So that's why v'salachta forgive them, because they come from a very high place, from the level of Keser, from Meshikosim Mokamach. Hine, kol ha'masois hoyu ad Yarden Yerecha. So we read the pasuk, they traveled until they came to Yarden Yerecha. So what is the idea? The idea of Yerecha is that of smell. He's going to explain what is the idea. There is reason, there is Chochmah Bina, and the level of smell is higher than Chochmah Bina. They kept on going till the highest of level. Mashiach, it says, he will smell the fear of Hashem. What does it mean to smell? Upidish. What does it mean? Not by what he sees. That refers to Chochmah. He will not go by Chochmah, and not what his ears hear. Shmiya, that's Bina, Shemichinas Bina. He will be Verichai. The Melech Vedon, he'll smell, and that way he will judge. They tested Mashiach. Bar Koich, they wanted to see, can he smell? If he can't smell, then he's not Mashiach. And done. What is the idea? Ba'im Yizeh B'Zoyer, the Parshas Yisroi, the Vayim Ches, Omad Aleph, Ubemigdash Melech Shom B'Shem Rabbi Chaim Betal, Ubezoyer Vayakil, Daf Reish Gimel Omad Beis, Nimtzo B'Chinas Reach, so it turns out level of reich is higher than Chochmah Bina. Ki shoyresh b'chinas reach u'b'chinas chutma darech ampin. The root of the level of reich is the chutma, sort of the nose of arech ampin. Like the pasuk says, utilosi achatem loch. The pasuk uses also, my praise is achatem loch, is the level of the choytum. V'gam b'gamora yeshlemes al zeh ki Mamer Azal. It's also a hint in the Gemara. He says, "Lebala choytem ani mevakesh." Over there in the Gemara is that he was looking at one of the rabbis. I guess he had a big nose, so he said, "I'm looking for the bala choytem, the one with the nose." But it represents a deeper level in higher than just understanding. So, and that's why it says by Mashiach, that he'll have reach, level of reach. Reach meaning higher than the level of Chochmah, higher level of Bina, level of reach. So what's the difference between taste and smell? Because both of them, both of them will strengthen the seichel. The food helps you think. Smell gives you power in the seichel. There's still a difference between them. The taste and the food, they vitalize the person, similar to an inner light. And but the reich is a surrounding light. So you see the difference. The fruit that you smell remains whole like it was in the beginning. It's only that this smell expands from him. The fruit doesn't get touched, like came by Michael. But when you eat, you have to chew it and you have to swallow it. Same thing is above. What is the madreg of ichlu reim, v'shikru doidim, ichlu reim, le'ela, eating, shehem, ava aim, abba, yonik mazal hashmini. So you have chokhmah bina, abba nurtures from the 8th mazel of the arichampin of the gimel midas, tkina dikna. So he takes the 8th level. Though that's the inner dressing up. Similar also goes in Gan Eden. Tzaddikim are sitting and they are enjoying the ray of the divine. By being absorbed in their understanding in an inner. That is, the Torah is in my inside. That's inside, it's all pnimi. So Torah is b'seich meyai. Torah is chokhmah bina. Chokhmah bina is islapshus pnimis. Yening mazal shmini. So therefore, it's all our shachas pnimis. Mitzvahs atzmam shorsho mikesed. But the mitzvahs themselves, their root is level of kesed, which is the Tov Reish Chof Amud Ha'oyer. The 600 pillars and 20 pillars of light. Of there can I come in an inner. Over there, Hashem appears from a distance. It's from a distance, not in a pnimi. That's a makif. Hainu, Kabeshakosu, V'zoyar, Tofis ulei tofis, says you hold on, you don't hold on. So in other words, it's makif, it's not in a pnimis. That's this level of smell. I'm Bezer Parshneach, Dav Samacher, Medal, Parsh, Kudi, Dav Reshkov, Aleph, Dav Resh Samachtes, Aleph. She'ein, Tainuk Nimshum Mizgalu, B'chinas, Pnim Techas, Agos, Mamish. It doesn't reveal in the inside understanding. Rak Kedu Mosareach, it's only like the smell, it stays above. Which of course is Parshat Sav or Sefer Medbeis. Lo Yodin Barecha Kiman the Arich Recha is Basim. They don't know. Not sure the exact tension of the smell, like somebody who smelled and became lifted up from the smell, and so that's in a higher level. So inyan mashikosu. This is what the idea of mitzvahs becomes. The vushim to the neshama Gan Eden. B'chinas makifim mashalo yuchol lizgalus v'toichas agosim mamish. That's what cannot come down as the food. Mamish kibichinas makif. The nikra levush, that's called the vush. Zo mashikosu zaviyorach esireach begodov. The smell of his gak mashikosu b'zoyad parshas balog tavkuf bevov medalev berecho de levushayu. Vayim mashikosu beparshas chukah b'dermasachas yoshir ali be'er. Me'inyan hamaki v'alevush, he discusses the hamaki v'alevush animshach l'tzadikim began Eden me'mais hamitzvos. So there also talks about level of makif. But over there, he says that they get it in Gan Eden. Here we're talking about in Gan Eden, they get the pnimis, they can get from the level of reich. Over there it says they get from the Maisa mitzvahs, they get the makif. V'shom niskara moshel kiborok hamavrik, talks about a lightning. The Efsher, he says, Shizov b'chinas siriyah. That's the level of seeing Meshikosu, Ba'avaya aleim yiroh, v'yotzu kaborok chitzoi. So a vision. So, but that's not yet the level of Mashiach Nemar Varichai Loy L'Mayra Enoch. So that's still a level of Riyah. By Mashiach, it's a higher level. So Makif El Yosef. So basically, there's two levels of Makif. It's a higher level of Makif. By Mashikosu, the Maslas Chanuk Samizbeach, B'Yishem and Amizcho Ketoiris. By Mashikosu, the Ramaskil, Bossi Legani B'Inyan Larisi Meiri. ובדברי המסחיל, וישלח ישוע, חולו והסיריחה בהפטרת הפרשה שלח. Okay, I know there's a small piece left, but we'll just finish that piece.